Hey guys, welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast post-game show. Hope you guys are having a great rest of your weekend. Let's get into this post-game show because I'm sure you guys have a lot of thoughts, feelings. I know I do. I want to get into these game notes. And then after these game notes, I'm sure we're going to be talking about the fight, the scuffle, Anthony Edwards flexing on third stringers, all that stuff. But so no Cade, no Tobias to start this game. First and foremost, Tobias was apparently in the starting lineup. I saw them put a graphic out. He was a late minute scratch again with an Achilles tendinopathy injury. So there was no Tobias and Cade, to no surprise. Jalen Duran, uh, for me in the first quarter, was very active. Offensively, really battling with Rudy Gobert on the glass. And this looked like a game where the Pistons were going to win it again without Cade and without Tobias. The energy, the team defense. There was a point where Minnesota. I don't think they got scored their 10th point until like the 4 minute mark for the first quarter. Like the team defense was very active. They were playing the passing lanes. Malik Beasley had 12 points in the first quarter. Tim Hardaway Jr. had 9 points. Detroit dropped 34-20. That was the score after the first quarter was over. And it looked like this was going to be a game where, the Pistons were going to go into Minnesota and handle their business. And obviously, there was some slippage coming out of the first quarter. T-Wolves going to 8-0 run. And in that 8-0 run, it was led by Dante DiVincenzo, who we're probably going to talk about a lot. He's a bench player. You guys probably remember him on the New York Knicks last year. Really good player. Him and Sue kind of get into a little bit of trash talking. There was a play in the second where Stu had the ball and Dante DiVincenzo basically told him, F no, you're not making that. F no, F no. So there was some shit talking on his end before like the initial fight between Ron Holland, Nas Reed, and Dante DiVincenzo. I do want to point that out because I think some people that just saw the fight tonight, maybe they didn't get to see that part. So it was a little, chippiness. There was a little shit talking, which hey, like I'm all good for chippiness, shit talking amongst players and teams. I'm here for it. But then we have the altercation. Nas Reed goes up for a dunk. Ron Holland strips him. Now, I don't really know why Nas Reed acted so aggressively towards Ron Holland. Uh, Ron stood his ground, and we know Ron is he stands on business. He has since, the first preseason game when he was getting in it with Royce O'Neal. But he didn't back down. Dante DiVincenzo feels the need to kind of drag Ron by his jersey. And then you have Nas Reed and Dante DiVincenzo trying to take down Ron Holland right in front of some fans in the front row. And then it got so escalated that Isaiah Stewart got into the fight. Marcus Sasser was out there. It was honestly crazy. I think the way the game was going, it was very physical on the Pistons side, but that's just the way they play. And I don't think Minnesota is really used to being, you know, playing against a team like the Pistons in which they play, because the Pistons are a team that plays very physical on both ends of the court, and that's just their play style. It's not that they're a dirty team. That's just how they play. I think I saw a lot of casual NBA fans that aren't Pistons fans kind of say that, the Pistons are dirty, they play way too physical. That's just how they play. Like there have been a lot of teams that don't like the way that the Detroit Pistons play, and that's kind of the culture that JB Bickerstaff has instilled into these new improved Detroit Pistons. They're going to play hard for a full 48. They're not going to give up, and that's just how it is. But they get ejected. Pistons still somehow have a lead after that. Being shorthanded, you only have 10 guys available on your team to play. Dennis Schroeder stepped up in the second quarter. Malik Beasley stepped up. Paul Reed had a little, couple buckets here and there. Pistons going to halftime with a 60-54 lead. Still maintained a lead after everyone was ejected. I do want to read to you guys everyone that was ejected if you did miss this game. So on the Timberwolves side, you had Dante DiVincenzo, Naz Reid, Pablo Prigioni, who's an assistant coach um, with the Minnesota Timberwolves. You probably remember him on the New York Knicks years ago. On the Pistons side, they got ejected. Marcus Sasser, Ron Holland, Isaiah Stewart, and JB Bickerstaff got ejected. Now, JB Bickerstaff said he got ejected because he was sticking up for his guys, and his guys were the main guy he was sticking up for was Isaiah Stewart. I was watching the post game when he was asked by Cody Davis like why he got ejected with the assistant coach Pablo Prigioni. And JB's explanation why he did get ejected was because Pablo Prigioni said some quote. I think what JB, I think the word he used was belligerent uh, words towards Isaiah Stewart. Now, we don't know what was said. Those are JB's words. Chris Finch was the complete opposite in his post game availability with the media. He didn't really know why Pablo got ejected. He didn't like what Isaiah Stewart was doing, apparently, but JB took exception to it. He got ejected. Second time this season he's been ejected by the officials. But like the list of players that got ejected is really wild. I do expect some suspensions to come the Pistons' way, especially with Isaiah Stewart. And maybe it's a game, maybe it's more, who knows. The Pistons do play on ESPN next week, so I don't think the NBA is going to suspend them too many games because ESPN flexed the Pistons to play the Thunder on Wednesday next week. So I do expect some suspensions. Not as heavy on Marcus Sasser or Ron Holland. Probably a little bit heavier on Isaiah Stewart just because he's been in scuffles and fights before. And the way the league is, it's kind of like a reputation thing. That's probably what they'll look at, which I kind of think is unfair. Isaiah Stewart was just sticking up for his teammates. But at the end of the day, all those guys got ejected. But going into the third quarter, Timberwolves regained the lead after they were down 6. And the Pistons at least kept it within 9 for a majority of the third quarter. But you know, the T-Wolves just had way too much firepower. The Pistons were without so many key contributors, and obviously players out. So the Timberwolves actually regain a lead to end the third quarter 92-83. And in the fourth, it's just, I think we were just gassed. Guys like Dennis Schroeder and Malik and THJ and Paul Reed and everyone else, like they were really just gassed. They didn't have anything left in the tank after a long week of playing without Cade and Tobias Harris. But Pistons end the week 2-1. We'll take it. They lose to the Timberwolves tonight, 123-104. Timberwolves really didn't open up the lead until the fourth quarter. They basically left their starters out there until like I want to say the 2-minute mark. They were just kind of keeping their foot on the gas the entire game, and much like the Pistons, like they're fighting for playoff position. Like the Timberwolves do not want to be a play-in tournament team. They're trying to get to that 6 seed. They're neck and neck right now with the Golden State Warriors. So this was an important game for both teams. Obviously, Minnesota, they get the win tonight, have to give them that. But Pistons play a couple times next week. They have a ESPN game and an NBA TV game, so they play a few times next week. So even more great games, more great Detroit Pistons games for us to look forward to next week. But I do want to open up the show with you guys that are dropping some questions and comments about this game, and we'll open up the show that way. I want to get into the first comment of tonight's show, and it comes from Jay Hart. And it says, this team is officially bona fide, or bona fide. This team is officially bonded for life. Certainly give a shout out to Sass, Stu, Hit Boy Ron. We're in the do work Pistons era, and that first round matchup will be a slugfest. I agree with you. I think the more scuffles and even fights I see with this team, and I know even like Natalie Kerwin from FanDuel asked Malik, like, why do you guys why is this group like so tight knit? And JB said it in his press conference, like, sticking up for your teammates is a non-negotiable for me. And Malik said, we're brothers. We stick up for each other regardless. We're a family. And I think you see that on the court. You see that off the court. You see that on the bench. Like, this team likes each other. They're willing to, battle for each other and just stick up as teammates at the end of the day. And I think as fans, we see it on the court. We see the wins. We see the togetherness. We see the off the court stuff that the Pistons social team posts of like them going to like Bucky's earlier this year, or them just having team bonding events and being together. And I think that matters a lot. If you want to win in any sport, like if you guys have played sports at any level and you've been on a bad team and no one got along, you probably didn't win a whole lot unless you were like the star of that team, right? But you can tell these guys are willing to go to war together. And I think come playoff time, Jay Hart, you're right. That's going to matter, especially depending on who you do face in the first round. I mean, we've talked about it probably at nauseam with the Bucks, the Pacers, and the Knicks. It's going to be one of those teams that the Pistons do play in the first round. But I'm excited for the playoffs. I'm excited to see how this team does finish off the season, seeing like how many wins they can get. But you should be very proud of this team, even though they did lose tonight. I think this was more of a loss where you can look at it and say, you know what, we may have not won the game, but we were winning the game. We were up 16 at one point without Cade, without Jaden Ivey, and without Tobias Harris before that scuffle, before that fight. I'm extremely proud of this team, and I think you have a good point, Jay Hart. Like this team is different. There's something about this team that it makes you like want to support them and believe them. Got a comment from Mark Royal. The Pistons should have easily won that game, and the T-Wolves knew the only way they were winning is if they got the Pistons to crash out, and that's what happened. And very early on, like you saw Dante DiVincenzo, try to get under the skin of Isaiah Stewart, and it did work. I don't really know what was said. The only thing I really heard on my TV that the cameras picked up where he was just basically dropping F-bombs when he had the ball and he missed a shot, saying like, F no, you ain't making that. Like it kind of worked, but like the next play where it was an offensive foul on him running over Dennis Schroeder, instead of handing the ball over to Isaiah Stewart, even the ref, he kind of went like this to keep the ball out of his hand to kind of toy with him. And I think that escalated stuff. Rudy Gobert put his hands around Stu's shoulder. Stu didn't like that, didn't want to be touched by Rudy Gobert. And things just escalated after that. And honestly, I think you're right. I think the T-Wolves knew that the Pistons were more of a physical team before the initial fight. They were beating them by 16 without two key starters. Obviously, Jaden Ivey's been out since January 1st. Tobias and Cade were the two starters that were out tonight. But honestly, like the fact that they were beating the Timberwolves without Cade and Tobias, this kind of shows you like how well JB has this team playing and the level of basketball they're currently playing. They're playing at a very high level right now. I have a comment from Dolly. Even with half the team, we still kept it close until the fourth. Asar under pressure can't create much and needs to improve his handle. I don't think Duran got any lob passes since Cade has been out. Appreciate the comment, Dolly. Yeah, I mean, even to the third quarter, it was still it was a 6-point game at one point. T-Wolves obviously got it back up to 9. The fourth quarter, I think the team was just gassed. They didn't really have anything left in the tank, and the T-Wolves just kind of expanded their lead. So if you kind of look at the box score, you're like, oh, wow, the Pistons got blown out. The game was close for 3 quarters. By the time the fourth quarter started, the Pistons just didn't have anything left in the tank whatsoever, right? To your Asar comment, Asar under pressure can't create much and still needs to improve his handles. I will say, I think Asar's handles do need to be improved. Um, I wouldn't so much say he can't create under pressure. From what I saw, he just had a very difficult time finding people to pass to. It was a lot of stationary stuff from what I've seen, from what I saw tonight from his teammates. A lot of guys weren't moving. There was no motion when Asar had the ball in his hands, and it was a lot of him dribbling the ball into the paint, coming back out, and then trying to force something offensively. I think his teammates could have done a better job of just moving. Obviously, he was passing the guys like THJ and Malik and Simone out there for most of the night. But I would disagree in a sense where his teammates didn't do him any favors in terms of trying to get good looks. I do agree with you though. His handles do need improvement. I think that's something that he will work on this summer. Um, and I like the ball in his hands because he can create. He's a secondary ball handler that I think the Pistons have really been experimenting with over the past 2 months. And I know a lot of you guys pointed it out, like why doesn't he handle the ball more? I think it's still a work in progress. It's not a finished product, so I'm not going to be too hard on him. Duran hasn't got any lobs since Cade has been out. I believe he had a lob earlier in the week, but I could be wrong there. During at this stage of his development, I think a lot of you point out that if he's not getting lobs, he's not really effective. He did score against Gobert, putting the ball on the floor, but I think that's something he also needs to work on is kind of a face-up game, putting the ball on the floor, moves down low in the post, kind of refine that. But like I'm not gonna nitpick with the Sar and Duran tonight. I don't really think they're the reason why the Pistons lost this game. But if you guys want to kind of you know pick on Duran and the Sar tonight, you're more than welcome to. I'm not really looking at them for the reason why I thought they lost this game. Don't you love how tough Minnesota acted when the only reason they were in the game is because the Pistons had a skeleton crew left? It's great this team gets under the skin of so many or so much. I do agree. I honestly think that when you look at the Pistons, they've been under the skin of a lot of other teams. Like this isn't just like a Minnesota thing. Like they got under the skin of the Utah Jazz. They've been under the skin with the Indiana Pacers. This isn't so much a Minnesota thing. Like Minnesota's a good team. Like they have 40 wins. They're battling for playoff position. When we saw Minnesota, they were underperforming like crazy. Like Julius Randle couldn't hit a shot. Julius Randle, as of late, probably the last month and a half, has probably played the best basketball in a Minnesota Timberwolves uniform. Like Julius Randle's still a very good player. Anthony Edwards is a good player. I'm not going to come up here and like shit talk the Timberwolves. They have a nice team. Rudy Gobert is a really good defender. But getting back to your comment maneuvers, it just kind of shows you the physicality in which they play defensively. And even offensively when they're running the fast break and transition, going for dunks, going for lobs. Like this is a very physical team. And I don't think a lot of players or even teams around the league expected that out of the Detroit Pistons because, last year this was a team that was a 14-win team. They didn't really play with a lot of energy or physicality or grit. And JB has got them playing way more physical. And I think a lot of teams just aren't used to it yet. And I think that's why you see so many, scuffles, talking back and forth. And even tonight we had a fight. Like, I think that's why, but I think it's good for the league. It's good for the league when you have stuff like that because like the whole buddy buddy thing. Honestly, I don't want to see like jersey swaps. I don't want to see these guys just like dapping up after they lost the game. Like I actually want them to like hate each other. Like I kind of want like the rivalries back, but maybe it's just because I'm a little bit older. But want to get to a couple more comments, and then we'll probably wrap this podcast up. This comes from Aaron. I know Nas was butthurt. A rookie was out working their whole team. I still don't know what like made him upset because like if you look at the play initially, he went for a dunk and Ron stripped it. And I don't know if Ron said something, but like he got right in his face, basically shoved them, and then like 20 seconds later, you got like half the Timberwolves bench and the Pistons players out there just going crazy. I really don't know what happened. I thought Ron made a good defensive play, but like, yeah, I honestly don't know. It's really crazy. Got a comment from Wakanda Forever. Bad boys are back. Isaiah Thomas said that last week that when you look at previous Detroit Pistons teams, like they didn't have that edge or the physicality, and he's watching this team and he likes the physicality. He likes the way they play, the grit they play with, and I agree with him. Like the Pistons are a team that plays physical on both ends of the floor, and I like that about them, especially with the team that we had to watch last year. Like, the team we had to watch last year is honestly crazy. Get to a couple more comments and questions, and then we'll probably wrap this podcast up. This one comes from Mr. Longitude. We're really bringing back. Uh, hold on. We're really bringing that edge back to the league. It's been missing. This is amazing time to be a Piston fan, and Zeke is proud too. Exactly what I was saying earlier. Like, I love basketball. I've been watching it since I was a kid. And like probably over the last maybe 10, 12 years, like the physicality has kind of gone away. You can't really touch players anymore. It's more of an offensive driven league, and the Pistons are slowly kind of bringing back physicality. They're bringing back defense. They're bringing back kind of rivalries, because there's been more than one team that has had a problem, and even a coach has had a problem with the way that they play. Like Minnesota coach Chris Finch said that they were a little bit too physical for my liking, which he's entitled to his opinion, but that's the way JB has these boys playing, and I absolutely love it. Aaron S. Everyone wants rivalries back. Silver has done everything in his power to ruin that part of the league. I do agree. Like, I don't. Adam Silver compared to David Stern is night and day. David Stern was way more of an authoritative figure, where Adam Silver, to me, just seems like he wants to be friends and buddies with everybody. And to the point where it's just like it's kind of watered down the league. Like, we kind of talked about like the All-Star break a couple months ago in the All-Star game of how bad that was, and it has to do with Adam Silver, like trying to make tournaments, doing like Team LeBron, Team Giannis type of crap. Like, I could go on a whole tangent of why I think Adam Silver is a bad commissioner and why he's actually kind of ruined the NBA, but I'm not going to get into that tonight. That fight is all over the internet. It's a viral moment. Anthony Edwards got the last laugh, though. I guess. I mean, like, Anthony Edwards is a good player. He wasn't really in the fight, though, so I don't really know why you're saying he got the last laugh. If you're saying that because they won the game, sure, you could have that to take away if you're a Timberwolves fan watching this. Like, the fight was with Nas Reed and Dante DiVincenzo and Ron Holland. Dante was getting under the skin of Isaiah Stewart. Nas Reed, I don't know what was said, if there was anything said, but Ron stripped them clean. Don't know. But if you're a Timberwolves fan watching this, I have no problem with it. Honestly, I saw a lot of Timberwolves fans tonight commenting about the fight with Isaiah Stewart and Nas Reed and Dante and Ron Holland. Like, I get it. Like, if you're a fan of the Pistons or you're a fan of the Timberwolves, you're gonna have different opinions and different narratives that you want to kind of push home. I get it. If you're a Timberwolves fan, you're probably happy you got this win because you're trying to get out of that play-in tournament situation. If you're a Piston fan, obviously it would have been great to get another win, get closer to the Pacers, who are currently in the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. But like, honestly, it was a good game. It was, even after the fight. I thought the game was entertaining for the most part. Sucks that the Pistons didn't win this one, but again, the final score of this game was 123-104. Minnesota Timberwolves get the win over the Detroit Pistons. They split the season series 1-1. Pistons play a couple times next week, once on ESPN and once on NBA TV. But we will see you guys later on throughout the week, immediately after the Pistons OKC game on Wednesday night. But until next time, you guys, peace, have a good night, and go Pistons.